wrapping pumpkins already?
My mom and dad are gonna be
Hello everyone, happy Halloween. I hope you're all having a wonderful, spooky day. Do you ever just miss that feeling of being a kid again? Or even if you are a kid, not watching those same shows or growing up? Well, that's exactly how I felt this Halloween season, and I wanted to take a look back with Halloween approaching through all these Disney Halloween shows, because I remember as a kid I would get home from school, sit down, and spend my evenings watching these shows for hours on end, and there was something very special about them. Halloween was not only the one night a year that you get to eat unlimited candy and dress up and go trick-or-treating, but for me, these shows really made Halloween. A big reason why I love Halloween now is because how well they did it with these shows. So I wanted to take a look back and see if these held up to my unbelievably high nostalgia standards. Upon rewatching these, some of the stuff was a little goofy or corny, and that was to be expected rewatching something when you're almost 20. Like this. Or this.
In between, I can't hide.
But for the most part, I actually felt the comedy held up pretty well, and I was surprised how much I actually enjoyed watching these. So with a big selection pool for some of my favorites, I compiled a top 3 list of my favorite Halloween specials. But before we get into that, I wanted to look at some honorable mentions, because there was actually a lot of good stuff that I watched. Now keep in mind, I grew up around the 2010-2012 era of Disney. That's kind of when I peaked as a kid. But I did watch some of the older stuff like Hannah Montana and That's So Raven, and they actually had very good Halloween specials. That's So Raven had Raven and her friend turning into cows for Halloween, which was pretty goofy, where at the end they literally turn into actual cows, and they tied it all back with Raven's vision. Or Hannah Montana, they had her evil hillbilly twin cousin come in and try to ruin her life. So for something I didn't really watch that much growing up, these were pleasant surprises and enjoyment. And then I moved on to some of the stuff that I really do remember, and I remember quite a bit from my childhood, like Shake It Up or Good Luck Charlie, Dog with a Blog. I found these were all really good. I know some of you might have just scoffed at that, but like Dog with a Blog's hella underrated, so don't come at me for that. A lot of these ones really did well with that Halloween tone, and I found myself enjoying them quite a bit. However, there was 2 that stood out above the rest in the honorable mention. One of them was Wizards of Waverly Place, and this is kind of what I remember when it comes to peak Halloween nostalgia. It's probably because Wizards of Waverly Place was very popular and the one I watched the most out of everything. Like, I've probably watched every single episode of Waverly Place. However, this Halloween episode didn't hold up as well as I thought it would, because I've probably seen this 20 plus times. Maybe my peak enjoyment nostalgia has worn off a bit from watching it so many times, but I still really enjoyed watching this. I mean, Mantooth is just a vibe in this show, and seeing everyone work together to try to keep this haunted house alive, although it ended up being a little goofy, was very enjoyable. Now, the other honorable mention I wanted to look at is Jessie. And now I might have lied on the last one a little bit, because if I'm really being honest, I think I've watched this one the most times out of anything, and it consistently holds up really good. They have so many horror movie references, especially to The Shining, which some of the Disney shows do overdo a bit with the references. I feel like this one just tonally got it right. I mean, we do have a literal one-for-one shot of the Here's Johnny scene, which is a little overdone in horror, but I still really enjoyed this one because I've always really liked the dynamic of Jessie as a nanny to all the kids. So having her go full psycho after her own kids, basically, in a bit of a reference to The Shining as well, it ended up making a really good episode. So let's jump into the top 3 now. A lot of these live action Disney Halloween specials have a very similar tone. As far as the live action ones go, I feel like the one that did it the best is The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. I feel like this one hits the spooky notes the best. They utilize that hotel setting really well, and the cast really does go crazy on this one. So the story starts with Zack scaring Cody and basically calling him a big puss for not liking Halloween and some of the scary shit. And then I think it's London tells them about Suite 613, which is apparently haunted in this hotel. So for the spooky vibes, Zack, Cody, London, Maddie, and Esteban, they decide to stay in that suite for the night, only to realize that it's actually haunted. But not really. A bunch of wacky shit happens and everyone gets dragged away until it's only Zack left. And then once he's scared, they reveal it was all just a little hoax. Cody and the gang wanted to get back at little boy for being a little bitch to everyone and constantly scaring them. They do a lot of wacky shit to scare him. Like, they literally have a faked seance where Esteban kind of goes crazy. Shout out to the actor of him. And they bring in the janitor as like a ghostbuster, and they have like talking paintings. It's really odd, but very well done. I gotta say, the Halloween vibes in this one are immaculate. And although the Disney shows usually make a bunch of references to horror movies and characters in the horror movies, this one I feel has a lot of its own originality. And sure, there are some references, but they really delve into their bag of spooky shit here. And the cast of Zack and Cody's goated, so how can you not love it? Now, the live action ones were great, and I love a lot of the cast, but at number 2, we're delving into some of the animated parts of Disney, and I feel like it works a lot better because they can get very creative with their stuff and really delve into these interesting Halloween concepts. So next, we're looking at Phineas and Ferb, one of my personal favorites when I was younger, and this Halloween special is no difference. We are showing a creepy old dude at a bookmobile. He drives like a book stand. He tells us an anthology of spooky stories on Halloween night. Now, the first story he tells, I'm absolutely in love with. We follow Candace on Halloween night trying to get spooky. She's talking to one of her friends on the phone and decides to fuck around and do a Halloween ritual. Doing that, she accidentally brings her favorite little doll, Ducky Momo, to life. It's pretty funny seeing a little menacing Ducky Momo waddle around with bloodlust, but by far the best thing about this episode is that badass Ducky Momo rock song they made that they play over the montage when he tries to go after Candace. The second episode, we follow Dr. Doofenshmirtz as he explains to Perry his evil plan. He wants to find a giant floating baby head that will grant him 3 wishes. The premise sounds even more goofy reading it, but this is the actual premise. Classic Dr. Doofenshmirtz, he makes an innator to find this baby, and once he gets his wishes, he tells Perry he's too big brain to waste his wishes, and then he proceeds to waste all his wishes. He wishes for an iced tea to test it out, and then wishes for an army of cheese, which Perry proceeds to murder and eat the whole army.
Oh man, if I wasn't so hungry, this would be horrifying.
And then the last one, he himself turns into a big giant floating head. And the final spooky story of this episode, the kids have to battle a bunch of evil monster Perry the Platypuses? Platypi? I'm gonna go with platypuses. The best part of this story is how much of a menace Buford is. Like, look at this shit.
It says here you have to be careful not to spill grape juice on a platypus or it will make an evil platypus clone. I'm not really sure why anyone will... Keep reading.
For a kid show, Phineas and Ferb incorporates music and sound so well. I really had a blast watching this one. And that creativity really shines through. I mean, actually being able to watch a giant floating head, or an evil Ducky Momo, or the gremlin platypuses, it made it a lot of fun. So shout out to the creators of this show, because for a show that takes place all in the summer, they managed to make a banger Halloween episode. And finally, at number 1, the peak of Halloween Disney specials has to be Gravity Falls. Nothing gets me more ready for Halloween than Gravity Falls. The show on its own is amazing and enough to watch for Halloween, but it gets tuned up to an 11 with the Summerween episode, and it's everything you could ever want. So Dipper and Mabel get ready to dominate Summerween with overwhelming twin cuteness. However, Dipper is mad horny and wants to go to a party to bag Wendy instead of trick-or-treating. He ends up getting forced to trick-or-treat anyways after he encounters the Summerween trickster, who tells him he's too horny for his own good and he needs to get spookier. They're threatened by the monster and told they need to get 500 pieces before the end of the night for the monster, or they're gonna get murdered. Dipper and Mabel dress in a dope-ass PP&J costume, and they get those 500 candies light work. However, Dipper gets caught lacking, and while they're going for the last piece of candy, he sees Wendy and realizes he's still horny as hell. So he accidentally trashes all the candy trying to rizz her up. Everyone gets pissed at him, obviously, and then the Summerween monster shows up. They get chased down to the Halloween store, and then the monster eats Seuss. The monster goes on a big monologue revealing he's actually the shit candy from Halloween that gets thrown away every year because no one wants to eat it. Can you blame him? Who wants to eat candy corn? But because it's candy, Seuss eats this monster alive from the inside, and then the monster cries tears of happy joy, realizing someone actually ate him. In the end, Dipper reconciles with his family, and it ends up being a really wholesome ending, and I love Gravity Falls, so it's no surprise that I enjoyed this one the most out of any Halloween special. I've always enjoyed this show because it has that comedy style that really any age group could enjoy, and although it's a kid's show, it doesn't really feel like it's made to be. So you take that and you combine it with Halloween, I mean, it's just a 10 out of 10. I think the overall lesson I've learned from rewatching all of these specials is that Halloween really makes everything better. I watched all these shows religiously growing up, but nothing ever beat the Halloween special, so I really had a great time rewatching all these. And although spooky season is almost over, Christmas is right around the corner, so maybe next time I'll take a look at some of the Christmas specials when the time comes. But for now, I hope you all enjoyed looking through this nostalgia bag with me, and I hope you have a wonderful spooky time tonight. Love ya.